Hey everyone, it's Sam, and welcome back to the 911 Nonsense podcast. To stay in the loop, learn about upcoming guests, and join in the conversations with the Noon community, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And hey, if you like what you hear in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us. In this episode of Noon, we have Patrick Pianezza, a paramedic, healthcare leader, and co-writer of Code 3, joining me to talk about the reality behind the job and the stories that don't leave you. We get into burnout, the emotional weight of doing everything right and still losing a patient, and the call that stuck with him long after he left the truck. Patrick also shares the story behind Code 3 and how real experiences shaped what you see on the screen. This one is raw, honest, and hits close to home for anyone in or out of EMS and healthcare. Let's get started. All right, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us on the Noon podcast today. I'm so excited to have you on. I have watched the movie, I've chatted with you a little bit, and I'm super excited to get this episode going. So I'd love to get an intro of who you are, what you do.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Patrick Pianezza. I'm the co-writer, technical consultant, and actor, if you check the credits, of Code 3. I was a paramedic for a dozen years. I still hold my card, but I don't work for an agency anymore. I grew up in Central Illinois. I grew up in a little place called Sherman, Illinois, and then moved to South Carolina, where I got my bachelor's and my master's. And what I love telling everybody is the real USC. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop a line about that. I'm happy to defend my football team despite any and all objective criteria. Two very expensive receipts from that university. But I've got a bachelor's in public relations and a master's in healthcare administration. Was working full-time hours while I was in college. And then did my postgraduate externship at Johns Hopkins. My HR job was Monday through Friday, and then I was a member of their critical care transport team known as Lifeline on the weekends. And then from there, went to California and got to start working in hospitals and have been doing program management and patient experience type work for probably the last decade or so. And then the movie came out. We had the opportunity to make the movie, which was a lot of fun and a real complete shift in my career and thought processes. And that's a very brief rundown. I'm married. I have a corgi. We live in Southern California. It's awesome. And I got a brother and a nephew.
That's awesome, man. One of the things that you said is that you still carry your license. Is it because you plan on utilizing it in the future, or is it just kind of a little trophy that you carry along with you?
It's a little bit of both. It's kind of like that last vestige of like, if I can't do anything else, I know I can do this. And so I keep it in my back pocket. And the other part too is I did let it lapse and I got it again. And part of that was when I originally had expired and kind of walked away from EMS, as the movie was coming out, I thought it would be really great to have it back. And so there's this really funny story about how I had to essentially speed run my my recertification process. And I went from literally nothing to getting my national registry back in 10 days, including the 72 hours of continuing ed, ACLS, PALS, PHTLS, and challenging registry. And I think I know I was that last group of people that still had to take psychomotor because I know now it's all didactic. But yeah, I did all of it, I think 10 or 12 days. So the fact that I could get it back is like a huge ego boost to me. And now that I have it, I'm never letting it go. Like I will be continuing ed forever. Whether or not I ever treat a patient again remains to be seen. But it's a point of pride for me now.
How was it going into that test?
The second time? Insane, because I failed it the first time when I was in paramedic school, in the old days. I was petrified because my original national registry was on paper. And all I knew about the computer test was that it automatically shuts off whether you pass or fail. And I remember I was at like question 90 or something, and all of a sudden the screen goes blank, and I was reading on some stuff on the internet. It's like, if it shuts off early, you definitely failed. And I was like, well, that's par for the course. I haven't actually gone to school in like 10 years. And they sent me the email that you passed. And I was like, somebody made a mistake. And I was like, but I'm not correcting them. So yeah, it was intimidating. It was one of those things where I felt pretty confident about 75% of the test, because I think there is a certain amount of confidence that comes with having known that you've done the job for a long time. So the test seems more like a formality. Now, to be clear to anybody who's listening, that's prepping for the exam. That is not an excuse. Like, I am a very unique individual in this respect. Like, study and prepare. The test's not easy. But because I had done the job for a long time and I kind of thought I knew what to expect, I felt pretty confident about 75% of the test. And then there were those questions that I absolutely memorized and was like, this question sounds weird. I'd go home and look it up and I was like, well, I got that one wrong. And that's what fed into the anxiety of like, I definitely failed. But then either those were the questions that either that they didn't hurt as bad or I did well enough, or those were the test questions for the next round. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was gut wrenching because, of course, they don't tell you right away. You have to wait a few days while they validate the scores. But I don't know. It was a challenge.
Sounds like it. That's awesome, though. Congratulations on passing first try this second time. I don't know, like however many times it was. That's awesome, though. It's nice to know that it can be done, and it's super cool that you're still continuing to hold your license. When we were talking pre-record, you had mentioned that you had started working on the movie like back in 2012. Is that when it like started, or is that just when you kind of started to put it into motion?
Well, so yes and no. The question I just got it last night. I'm at the South Carolina EMS symposium, and people ask me all the time, well, how long did it take you to write it? And to me, that's a very simple question with a very complicated answer, because it truly depends on when you want to measure from. And the reason I say that is when I was an undergrad, part of my program required me to take a creative writing class. And I took that class. It wasn't my major, but it was just part of the program, one of the classes I had to take. And I had just come off a night shift that was 14 hours. That was only supposed to be 12. We've all been there, and it's a bad day. And I almost didn't go to class that day. I absolutely remember that. And the professor said, if you want to tell a compelling story, write what you know. And something in my brain broke. And I just like, oh, you want a story? I'll tell you a story. And kind of went home and just screamed into the void of this, like, this is what EMS is really like. I was pretty crispy at that point. It was just slamming on the keyboard, just knocking out this short story. And I emailed it to my brother and to my parents and turned it in. And I actually found the original. I still have the original that's graded by my professor. And that was it. That was 2004. And it was a homework assignment. That was literally all it was. Flash forward 5 years later, I'm at a grad school, getting ready to start my next job. I basically have like a month of vacation. And I'm visiting my brother who lives in Santa Monica, really close to the beach. So I'm living the bohemian lifestyle myself and loving it. And as brothers are wont to do, it kind of comes up to me because I can't stand to see you happy, write a script. And, I know nothing about screenwriting. I didn't go to class for that. I didn't even know what the program was. And he got me a copy of the program. The script writing program is called Final Draft, if anybody out there wants to write a script. And so he goes, you got that short story, turn it into a script. And I said, all right, fine. And so I did. And he comes home and says, this is terrible, which he was right. He's do it again. So I rewrote it. I did some edits. And that was it. And what I tell everybody is you got to be good, and then you got to get really lucky. And I knew I was a good writer. I'd written for EMS Magazine and EMS World. And the part where I got really lucky was Chris Leone, who's the director of the movie, and my brother were coworkers at this visual effects house in Santa Monica. And so my brother goes up to Chris and he says, hey, do you want to read a script? Chris is like, absolutely not. And my brother eventually wears Chris down, and Chris reads it and liked it enough to say, okay, I'd like to meet Patrick and get to know him a little bit. So him and I are having lunch, and he goes, I read the script. He goes, it's a wild ride. He goes, I can't believe any of this is true. And I was like, no, it's all accurate. And he goes, well, tell me as an outsider something that I wouldn't know. And so I started to giggle, and I said, well, Chris, I know what brains smell like. And he fell out of the chair, and he was just like, that's absolutely going into the movie I'm in. And so then him and I our relationship started in 2012. And so that very long story is to answer the very simple question of, if you measure from when I wrote the short story, it's 15 years. If you measure from when Chris got involved, it's 12 years. And to be clear to anybody who's curious, like nobody got paid. This was a passion project. We were, you work on it for like a week and put it down for a month and then, email each other and say, hey, I was thinking about this scene or that and this, that, and the other thing. And of course, we were all working our respective jobs. But once we got the script to a place that we really liked, because Chris is a director writer, his agents started shopping the script around town and got us the rest of the way.
That's really cool. So you're saying that like every story that was in the movie was a personal story or one that like you'd at least heard of?
They're all personal stories that I have run. And what I also tell everybody is they're an amalgamation of 12 years. So it's not like I tell people, Mr. President is like 4 people. Just we kind of combine them into one, 4 or 5 people. So it's not like it's, Patrick Pianezza who lives at this address, but it's like the 15 Patricks that I've treated. And it's like, okay, so we're going to create a character, number one, for privacy reasons, but number two, it's also in service of the plot. Like, you're never going to find that one patient that fits exactly what you need, but those themes will work out. And because they're rooted in authenticity, the audience, especially if they are providers, will relate to it and say like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And I do have to, I have to give absolute thanks to Chris and to the actors because they were committed to getting it right. And there's no rule or law that says they have to do what's written on the page. They could absolutely do whatever they wanted. And the fact that they invited me in to be the technical director as well, or the technical consultant. And, if their hand was in the wrong place and coaching them on, no, it's got to be over here or whatever, they never fought us on it. They wanted to make sure that it was as authentic as it could be. So I'm always grateful to them for that.
That's awesome. And were you anticipating to have as like known actors as you had for the movie?
No, I mean, we're talking about an independent movie. So, it could have been, I mean, heck, I could have been the lead. Who knows? It never would have gotten made if that was the case. But
you never know.
Yeah, right. Call me.
You've got a listed actor spot now, so you're good.
That's right. Have SAG card. We'll travel. Well, the only one we knew for sure that was in was Rain, because So to answer your original question, no, we didn't write the script with anybody in mind. We had no idea who would play who, and we didn't know we were going to shoot it in L.A. Certainly didn't know we were going to shoot it for L.A. The script was written for any town USA. And really, we knew that we wanted to get, like anybody else, we want to make sure we have good actors. But when I said before that Chris's agents and managers started shopping it around town, people ask me, like, how did you pick Rain? And the answer is the exact opposite. Rain picked us. The script landed in Rain's lap through some professional channels. He read it and he really loved it and said that he wanted to be Rain, that he wanted to be Randy, and loved it. And so then he came on board and helped make it better, was part of the, giving us notes and thinking about scenes and things like that. And then because of Rain's involvement, he got us the studio because he had a relationship with the studio, which got us financing, which got us the rest of the way. So like thousands of lightning strikes in the right direction is the only way this gets made. And then ultimately we got Amy and Rel and Rob and Yvette and Raph and Cam and Jesus, I'm naming everybody now. Paige, all those people, but they were just I think people were drawn to the project, and they did. They were really committed to getting it right, and we were really, really lucky to have that caliber of talent to not only bring their A game, but also be committed to telling really what I think is an authentic representation of the work without putting a cape on and everybody lives, and we run into the burning building with no bunker gear on or SCBAs, and we're doing CPR as we fly through the air. Like it was really humbling to see those people really want to dive deep into what's it like to be a medic. Like all of that stuff was really great.
That is awesome. And they did. The movie was very well done, and I really appreciate I don't know. It literally almost like in the majority of the movie, you showed people pulling off to the right. And I wanted to ask you this. Was this like something that you intentionally did to like show people like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do? Or was there any point where you were like, you need to have somebody just staying in front of the ambulance for a little while? Because we all know that's real life, especially if you've driven an ambulance before.
Yeah, I love your take. Yes, this is an instructional video of what you should do. You're the first person to ever give me that take, and I love it. I'm going to use that from now on.
Literally, I told my wife, I was like, they're showing so much of people driving in front of the ambulance and going to the right, like right away. And like, it's not how it happens. A lot of people slam on their brakes or they pull to the left or they're running the red lights. Like, it's hilarious that there had to have been like 15 shots where you're showing people pulling off to the right.
That is the only thing, well, not the only thing, but I would say that certainly the loudest thing that I get hate for about this movie is that the cars are pulling to the right. And they're like, this guy's never driven an ambulance in his life. No, I'm well aware that that's not what happens. And I will tell you, we shot a scene of cars that wouldn't move. And we had this like extended like laugh bit where it was this guy in a BMW that wouldn't get out of the way, was constantly driving in the path of the truck that's throwing lights and sirens. And he's flicking off the ambulance, and it's hilarious. And you see the frustration on Rel, who's driving, he's slamming on the horn and the siren. And it was hilarious. It was hilarious the day we shot it. I thought, like, this is perfect. This is going to land amazingly with everybody. And then when you actually put it in the movie, you try to figure out where's the right place for this joke to go. And it just never fits because when it's a fun aside and it's absolutely true to life, but it just doesn't work narratively, especially because it's such an inside joke. Most of the public just assume that everybody gets out of the way. Of course, we know like that, exactly what you said. They slam on the brakes. They do the dumbest things I've ever seen people behind the wheel do. But number one, the joke doesn't land with general audiences. And number two, you're essentially wasting 4 minutes of screen time. And while 4 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, as you watch the movie, we are trying intentionally to keep ratcheting it up. We do these little escape valves of humor, but we keep trying to ratchet it up to keep the audience engaged. And the minute you put that funny, 3.5 minute, 4 minute like gag of car won't get out of the way, it just never worked, which sucks. But yes, I hear you. I know it's fake. Get over it.
Using it as an instructional video, I think, especially for the public, I think it works well. Like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Here it is more and more and more. You know what I mean? I think it was very well done. I also really, really liked when Randy would break the fourth wall and talk to the camera. I absolutely loved that. I loved the good mix of inside jokes, as you said, as well as like informational takes on what we do. Overall, very well done. Kudos to you guys. I think you guys did a really good job. What really pulled you into healthcare? I know you said that you worked full-time as an EMT throughout college. What prompted you to do that?
Again, accident. So there's a much longer story, but I went to community college when I left high school, and I always thought I was going to go be a doctor. I had an amazing pediatrician, and from the age of 6, I'm like, I want to do what you do. This seems like fun. And then I found out later in life that I'm allergic to organic chemistry, so that didn't work out for me. But I was at community college, and through a very long story that no one cares about, I came back to school, and all of our science courses had been reshuffled because of some grant funding issues. And that made I lost all of my science credits, and I was my associate's degree is in biology. And so I was trying to figure out, like, I have to become a full-time student really quickly in order to stay on my parents' health insurance. And so this is back when the course catalog was on paper, kids. Yeah, look at that gray right there. And I'm flipping through the course catalog, and I just see 8, the number 8 hours. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's exactly what I need. And I look over to the left, and it says EMT. I go, I'll take this. It'll make me a full-time student. If something bad happens, I might be useful. There was another. Oh, and I was like, and it'll look great on a med school resume. And that's how I got into EMS. It was out of necessity, and it just seemed like the best thing. And then flash forward to after being in class, having no idea if I'm going to be number one interested in this, or even if I've got the stomach for it, because my mom my mom was a physical therapist. My dad owned a bakery, and I walked into the ER and they were like, "Oh, they're working a code in the trauma room. Like, why don't you go check it out?" And this is literally my first clinical rotation ever. I'm as green as can be, and this is back when the old Life Pack 10s with the paddles on them. And I walk through the doors and somebody's leaning over the patient. And you just hear clear, bam, and they light this guy up. And I just remember going, "This is the coolest thing ever." And then went all the way to paramedic. And so that's how I got in. I joined the fire department. I joined the fire department so I could use my EMT skills because I was too young to work on the ambulance, and then worked in the hospital because I couldn't work on the ambulance, and the firehouse was only volunteer. So I started chasing medicine hard.
At a young age, right? I'm assuming that's why you couldn't work on the ambulance. It was an insurance issue.
Yeah, you had to be. Yeah, you had to be 21 to drive, and I got in I started class at 18. I got my EMT at 19, and then my paramedic at 21.
That's awesome. I started at a young age as well, so I couldn't drive the ambulance. I worked for 3 years before I could drive an ambulance, which is crazy to me. And now they've gotten, in some services, approval to allow 18-year-olds to drive the ambulance, which is also really crazy and kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why that rule exists.
Me too, but still.
The thing that was hilarious, though, was because I was a volunteer fireman, I could drive an 18-foot long or an 85-foot long fire truck. I couldn't drive an ambulance, which blew my mind.
Yeah, I was driving an engine a lot longer before I was driving an ambulance, which is crazy. So one of the biggest things that you guys promote in that movie is like burnout. Why was that important for you? I know, like you said, that you kind of popped off. You want to hear a story? Here's the story for you. You popped off. Why was that such a passion project for you at the time?
Well, number one, because it's real. I think that oftentimes there's a bit of hero worship, both in our own minds as providers and what the public sees. And I've said multiple times that I think that there's no more noble job than EMS. I think our job is to create order out of chaos. We never know what we're walking into, and I think there's an insane amount of nobility that comes with that. But I also feel like there is an onus on the not just your organization locally, but the profession writ large that has failed, and that is the ability to support the people that are doing the work effectively. And I also want to give a lot of grace. There is no evil villain out there. Like, everybody's trying to do their best with their best intentions. It's just we're not doing a good job of it. And this is, again, this is not like your boss hates you and hopes that you hate yourself. That's not what's going on. They're doing the best they can, but it's either, it's the same thing. It's funding, allocations, or resources, and sometimes they just don't exist. But that doesn't mean we should not talk about it. I mean, I was in college working full-time hours as a part-timer, exclusively in 911, and it's not an easy job. And one of the things that I tell everybody is, I was at a university with 25, 30,000 students, and my best friends were cops, firefighters, and medics. Like, there is a problem here. And I think the more we pretend that this doesn't exist, or we placate it by just saying the word burnout, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. We need better advocacy. We need better resources, because the burnout aspect is very real, and I don't think the public sees that. And as this film is really trying to do two things. It is really designed as a recruitment tool for EMS by being as brutally honest as we can about the profession, and by showing the public, like, I do sincerely believe that a lot of the public believes that we get so much of our own self-worth and validation by the work that we do, and we do. I mean, I won't speak for everybody else, but for me, like, I loved being a medic. I loved being able to come in and go, I don't really care what your problem is, but we're going to figure it out. And being able to do that at 19 years old, at 20 years old, was very self-affirming. However, I think the weight of that cumulative stress is what the public never sees. They only see, the firefighter getting the kitty out of the tree, not the horrendous things that we saw, 2 calls earlier. So that's why we wanted to talk about burnout and be very very honest with it and say, like, this is a great job and we do a lot of important stuff, comma, if we don't take care of those people doing the job, those people won't be with us forever. And I think by and large, there's a certain kind of person that does this type of work, and we got to take care of those people.
And were any of the calls in the movie one of your worst calls?
No, the calls that were in the movie, I mean, let me be clear. Whenever you deal with pediatrics, it's usually not great, especially when they don't make it. Like, those calls are absolutely horrific. I know that when we wrote that scene, when I was talking to Chris about it, was the emotional thing isn't so much that, sorry, we're going to spoil it. If you haven't watched the movie, that's on you. It's on Hulu, Amazon, and Apple. It's widely available. You should Disney. Go watch it. Yeah, there you go. But when Vincente dies, the thing that I was telling both Rain and Chris was, yes, that is tragic and horrific, and we're not glossing over that. The reason Randy is so mad isn't so much that Vincente dies, because as anybody who's done this job for 5 years knows, like, people are going to die. You can do your best. It doesn't matter. In fact, we explicitly say that in the movie. We'll do everything we can and people will just die on you. But it's this idea that he let the kid down by saying, like, everything's going to be okay. And that is that was the razor's edge we were trying to walk, especially with an audience that may or may not be in this profession. Be like, yeah, we see this and we work with this stuff all the time, but we have our own value system that we, at least for me, help keep me saying, like, hey, you might die, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that I don't lie to you and give you false hope and anything else. And so for us, it was like that idea of, what's Randy really upset about? Yes, it's compounded. Yes, the kid died, and yes, he's not immune to that. But it's also like the emotional toll that he has, where he has told this child that everything's going to be okay. But from my personal career, I mean, yeah, pediatric calls are really tragic, but my worst calls were not in the film.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable sharing some of the worst experiences that you've had in your time in the field?
Yeah, I mean, almost exactly beat for beat emotionally, what the Vincente scene was one of my worst, at least the one that emotionally hurt me the most. And that was, I had a patient in my career that had called for respiratory distress. It seemed pretty benign, right? I mean, she was bad. She was exacerbated. But from our perspective, it was like, all right, we're gonna treat you for respiratory distress, and that's about it. Put this person on CPAP, and honestly, run-of-the-mill call. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing that was like, oh my God, flashbulb, this is going to be the call that wrecks you. And the patient had a history of pulmonary hypertension, which we put in the chart. And 3 or 4 days later, I get a call from one of my supervisors and says, hey, we need to QA a call, which, like I said, anybody who's done this job, that's not like, woo, the boogeyman's coming. It's just like, all right, fine, let's QA the call. And they hand me this paperwork and they say, hey, do you remember this call? It's like, no, it's a respiratory distress call. I did like 900 of these yesterday. And I start reading the call paperwork. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this lady, pulmonary hypertension, had, exacerbated respiratory depression, whatever. I said, yeah, I put her on CPAP. And in my brain, of course, just like all of us, were like, you're clicking through the protocol. Like, what I missed? Why are they QAing this call? I looked at it and I was like, no, we followed protocol. That's cool. So this is just one of your random QAs that I happened to get hit with. And they go, well, patient died. And I go, what are you talking about? And then one of my coworkers made this really glib remark. And they're like, well, you killed them. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they go, well, you gave this person nitro. I was like, yeah, of course I gave them nitro. It was in the protocol, like 1 inch of nitro cream across the chest. They go, well, they have pulmonary hypertension. I was like, and? This doesn't mean, oh, this person's on this drug. And I was like, a drug I'd never heard of. And I was like, so? And they go, did you know this person was on this drug? And I was like, is it in the paperwork? Like, no, it's not in the paperwork. We had no idea this person was on this drug. And, we treated them the way we were supposed to, dropped her off. And he said, well, the person's pulmonologist called after the patient died and wanted to blame EMS. for potentiating the death of their patient because nitroglycerin is contraindicated with this drug. And I was like, number one, I didn't know that this patient was on this drug. Number two, even if I did know they were on the drug, there's nothing in the protocol book that says they're, we're not supposed to give this medication. It's contraindicated with that drug. And number three, like this drug, I didn't even know this drug existed. And so it was this starting to feel like, it was really one of that coworker's remark, like, oh, you killed them. And I'm like, wait, they asked for help. I did my best trying to help them. And now you're telling me that I'm the reason that they're dead. And I had to go talk to my med control doc. It was one of those things where it's like this call kept getting escalated. And luckily my med control physician was really good and was like, there's no way that you're expected to know every drug that exists. And number two, you didn't know that the patient was on this medication. And number three, you did exactly what was in the protocol. And, there's no way that you're in trouble for this. And while I'm grateful for that, that I did what I was supposed to do, that was the call that really wrecked me because all I could keep thinking over and over and over again was like, this person asked for help and you killed them. You killed them. You're the reason this person's dead. Like, we were trying to help them and you're the one who pushed them off. They were already having a bad time and, you pushed them over the edge. And I could not shake that. And I know it's not the Hollywood, like, kid dies and that's the thing that ratchets you, but it was this I couldn't shake this idea of like, yeah, I did everything right and I'm the reason that this person's no longer here. And it was very, very hard. And even some of my good friends in the industry were telling me, hey, it's the glib joke, right? You killed him by the book. I know I'm not the only one who's heard that, but it's also like, it's different when it's you. And part of it was like, I could have gone my entire life without knowing, like, patients have bad outcomes all the time. I did not need to know that it was because of something that I did. And that rocked me for a very, very long time.
Do you think that it was because of your coworker telling you that you killed the patient? Like, do you think if that comment had not been made, that it would have changed your feelings towards this event?
Maybe, but I think even if without them saying it, I probably would have gotten there on my own. They just very much speed ran that portion of the emotional trauma. Yeah, I mean, for me, it didn't help, let me put it that way. But I think that call still would have, if once I'd have learned everything else, I would have made that jump myself. But the fact that they just said that in passing really kind of just stuck with me. And yeah, that was, and we tried to, there was no way I could put that call in the movie because number one, there's so much medical minutia that the general public wouldn't get it. But number two, like, I thought it was really well done. The essentially the same emotional beats, but personally, that call from an emotional toll really just, I mean, I've been open about this too. Like, it took me a while to get back to what I call normal, and that was only through therapy and having good resources. But that call really, really messed me up for a long time.
Hey, I'm sorry that you had that experience, and it's hard, right? Because we still do practice medicine, and I think that in everybody's career, I think you'll have, hopefully not, but you'll have at least one similar instance where you did everything you were supposed to do, and unfortunately, we still have bad patient outcomes. And I don't think we often have the ability to change that. So I'm really sorry that you had that experience and that it did have that profound effect on you that it did. And I would agree with you that in the beat for beat, like you said, the emotional toll that was shared in the movie, it was very similar. So I think that you guys did a good job with that. What are some of your favorite events or calls that you had while you were in the rig?
Oh, I mean, to me, it's just like the rest of us. I'll speak broadly. Some of the humorous stuff that no one else will ever see except for you, your partner, and maybe some other people that are on scene. And to be clear, a lot of EMS is one HR meeting from completely being obliterated. There's this one call that cracks me up that I wish we could have put in the movie, where we get called out to an elderly woman who's disoriented was how the call came out. And one of the police officers that I'd worked with, we go through the door and he's got a wooden spoon, and I'm not kidding you, he is slapping it against the washing machine. And it's clanging, right? The metal washing machine. Clang, 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 clang. And I just like, what are we doing? You go talk to this old lady, and sweet as can be, is clearly, she's kind of in and out as far as like mental acuity. And so we start talking, and she's like, yeah, those gremlins, they're coming out of the washing machine. They're stealing my underwear. And I was like, okay, now this makes sense. I understand what's going on here. And she's like, and he's doing the Lord's work. You get him. And she's like cheering him on, which is the funniest part ever. Like she sees him, and he's like, got him. And he's like, slam, And other than that, besides the organic dementia this woman is suffering from, there's nothing clinically significant going on. So you would get her loaded up, getting ready to go. And this officer did the world's greatest thing I have ever seen. And just we're getting ready to get to the door jam and pull her out. He goes, hold on a second. He rears back, and he draws his weapon. He points at the washing machine, and he kicks the door to the washing machine closed. He goes, all right, you sons of bitches, you leave this nice woman alone. Don't make me come back or I'll kill y'all. And when I tell you that this elderly woman swooned in my stretcher, like, we could have put a cape on this man and made an officer of the year. And the whole ride to the hospital, did you see what that man did for me? And it's just like, yep, he's a hero. They put the stars on the wall just for him.
That's awesome. And that really speaks to his character also. It sounds like it was so much fun, and what a great call. And it sounds like you guys handled it really well too, because we all know with burnout, sometimes those can be a little frustrating and a little rough, and we need to remember that we have to have some fun on our calls.
Yeah, it was great.
What's been your proudest moment?
I'm an educator at heart, and so being able to bring up the next generation, being able to answer questions, being able to expose this field to other people that may not know enough about it has been something I'm really proud of. I mean, there's clinical stuff. I mean, I've been able to touch on multiple different modalities in EMS. I've done some flight missions, but I would never call myself a flight medic. I've done critical care, which was completely eye-opening. By the time I went to Johns Hopkins, I had at least eight or 9 years of 911 experience. So I walked into Hopkins fairly cocky, because it's want to do, and realizing that I knew absolutely nothing about critical care, and nor the incredible medicine that goes on in the ICUs at Johns Hopkins. I was just like, this is insane. I've never seen any of these setups in my life, nor can pronounce that drug kind of thing. But the people that are reaching out every once in a while to me, I've got two students that I'm mentoring right now. That one's going to paramedic school, one is an undergrad at Carolina, and being able to help guide them as best I can is something that I'm really proud of. I always like doing that stuff. Even when I was on the truck, training the new people as they came on board, to me, that's the fun stuff. And whenever you can pull the veil away. So even teaching like community CPR, I'm a huge advocate of like, we should be teaching CPR often, early, everywhere, without cost, like especially hands-only CPR. And part of that's personal, right? My mom died of a massive widowmaker heart attack, but the fact that we could be out there and doing that kind of stuff, I think helps us tell our story. And one of the things that I am a huge advocate of is like, I really do not believe that EMS tells their own story very, very well. In fact, I wrote an article, it's got to be 15 years old by now, called "Do We Deserve to Be Ambulance Drivers?" And I reread it, and I think that most of that article still stands. And I think part of that is that we don't do a good enough job telling our own stories. And so for the thing that I'm proud of is like bringing the film, I hope brings EMS to the forefront and gives us an opportunity for both advocacy and recruitment to be able to have these kind of conversations with the general public and say like, here's what you don't see, and here's what we actually do. And by the way, it'd be great if you paid us more by increasing our reimbursement rates, because the sausage gets made in a lot of complex ways, and there's no reason to get into that on this podcast. But you want to fix pay, we have to get paid for doing the work that we do. So it's kind of all of that wrapped into one. So what am I proud of? I'm proud of making EMS a respectable role in the eyes of the public.
I think you did a good job. And I've talked about it already a few times during just this recording. I think you guys did an amazing job on the movie. I really enjoyed it. My wife was also watching it with me, and she was like, "Is that true? Is that true? Like, is that what really happens? Is that true?" So I think you did a really good job of expressing it in a way that a lot of us can't. So kudos to you. And Patrick, I just want to give you 15 minutes to talk about anything or shout out anybody that you would like to shout out or feel like you missed anything that we talked about in this episode.
No, I think I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to share this and have this time with everybody. And I think the biggest thing is for anybody who is thinking about burnout, or not thinking about burnout, but is going through burnout, or even is starting to hear those words creep into their mind. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, get the help and get the help early. What I tell a lot of people through some of the speaking engagements that I have is, number one, let me be clear, not a doctor, not a mental health clinician by any stretch of the imagination beyond what 911 has taught me. So, go talk to a real clinician, not me. But what I tell everybody is like, number one, vet a therapist early. This has never been all of you are broken and need to go to therapy immediately. But what I have seen a lot, unfortunately, is what you'll hear employers say, again, with their best intentions. We have a robust EAP, Employee Assistance Program. And my next answer is always, I agree with you. Have you validated it? And because I tried to use one of my company's EAP programs. And once I finally got through past the coach that answers the 1-800-EAP number, is they give you a list of clinicians, right? And so then you start to call these clinicians. The first one's dead. The second one is out of state. The third one, taking new patients. The fourth one is like, I've got an appointment 6 weeks from Tuesday. It's like, but you're looking for help now. So all of that to say, a cautionary tale, like do the work while you don't need the help. And, the first therapist may not be the right one. I went through like 2 of them before I found the right one for me. And everyone is unique. And I think you add the added level of the personality types that do this kind of work. You've got to find somebody that will work with you. And being able to find that person today while you're healthy, to be able to just pick up the phone and call Dr. Smith on tomorrow when you're having that bad day is absolutely essential. The other big piece of advice that I try to give everybody is, find friends outside of this industry. And when I say outside of this industry, I mean not cops, not firefighters, not dispatchers, and not other medics. You can have that family, and they are important. Some of my closest friends that are here at this conference are men and women that I worked with for over a decade. But you need to have friends that are outside of this entire universe, because they are a great barometer and a mirror for when they'll look at you and be like, you're acting weird. I don't like it. You need those types of friendships. So the other part to that is that it sucks and it takes work and it's hard, because no one will come knock on your front door and say, hey, do you want to be friends? Like, you have to get a hobby, or you have to go do something, and you have to find those people in your community that you really like. And number 3, like, take the time. When you get your vacation time, don't let your boss, your supervisor, whatever, tell you, oh, we're going to run short. Like, don't let them give you that guilt trip. The time that you have earned is yours, and you need it to be healthy, to step away from this work, to be able to take a step back, enjoy the time with friends, family, vacation, whatever. But to truly step away, put the pager away, throw it in the dumpster for that week and a half, and go out and forget that this job exists, and just enjoy what it's like to not to be running on adrenaline all day long. But those are things that for me helped me quite a bit. I hope that helps others. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. And if people are coming up to you and saying, hey, it may sound like you may need to talk to somebody, like, just listen to them. Because even if it's delivered quite tactlessly or without tact, they'll probably have your best interest in mind. And lastly, like, nobody's doing this alone. Like, we know the super scary statistics. We kill ourselves more than twice the rate of the regular population, because a lot of that unseen trauma, that stuff that continues to compile. And so the biggest thing is that, if you hear nothing else from me, is, you're not alone. I went through it. I got very, very lucky. I had good resources. But this job is amazing, and I loved everything about it. And it has the opportunity to be the greatest thing. It can also be really, really, really challenging as well.
Awesome. And great advice, man. I really appreciate that. Do we have any future plans for new movies?
We're trying. Yeah, we've got a sequel. We've got ready to go. Like everything, the hardest things in Hollywood is money in a studio. But yeah, we what we really want to do is turn Code 3 into a TV series and have it become like an episodic. And we have that written. Chris and I, everybody's interested. So Rain, Rel are interested. Chris, myself, my brother, we're all interested in it. We have the character arcs mapped out. We have the first couple of episodes written, but it's everything else. We have to find the money and the consolidation in Hollywood. It's getting more and more challenging to do, but we are certainly very interested. We also are very interested in a sequel. I've got some other stuff written that is not EMS related that I'm trying to get off the ground, but yeah, we'll keep pushing forward, keep hoping for it. That's what we'd love to do.
Awesome. Well, I've heard it's really cheap to film here in New Mexico. So if you happen to come down here, hit me up. It has been an absolute phenomenal conversation, Patrick. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing, a lot of the emotional side and then sharing some of the background side that we don't see typically in movies. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much. And every interview I've been on, I've ended with this, and that is for anybody who's out there still doing the job, and I don't really care at what level, whether you're an EMT, medic, flight medic, critical care, whatever. Thank you for what you do because it matters, especially to the community that you're serving. And I know you'll never hear it enough, so you're going to hear from me today. So thank you for what you do. And that's coming from a guy who did it for 12 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.